Hi, I'm Dr. Jason Barker with the Natural Athletes Clinic. Of course, we're living in some trying times with the threat of COVID-19 these days. I'm recording this video at the end of July in 2020. All we're hearing in the news is to wear a face mask and social distance. However, nobody's talking about how we can boost our immune function so that we stay healthy enough to maybe fight this illness off and maybe even suffer less serious complications from it. So of course, one of the best ways that we can support immune function is through moderate exercise. Now, what is moderate exercise? That entails exercising 30 to 60 minutes a day, most days of the week at moderate intensity. So that means going for a jog, lifting weights, doing a swim, going on a hike, things of that general nature. Now, when we study exercise in relation to illness, we'll often come up with a J-shaped curve. Now, at the hook of that J right there, you'll see sedentary people. Comes down, you'll see moderate exercisers, and as it goes up, you'll see people who exercise at higher intensity and for longer duration. Now, the sedentary people shows that they end up having about twice the amount of infections as do people who exercise moderately. So another way of saying that is if you exercise moderately, you'll suffer about half the chance of getting sick as do the sedentary people. Now, when we go up the J to the people who are exercising at a higher intensity for longer duration, typically these people are in the studies are going about 90 minutes, 120 minutes, and even longer exercise sessions every day. Now, it's well known that these people have about 2 to 4 times the risk of getting sick as do the moderate intensity exercisers. Okay, so now that we know that people who exercise for longer durations and higher intensity get sick more often, we know that it manifests more often in respiratory infections and oftentimes also in GI infections. So they get diarrhea, nausea, vomiting, things like colds and flus, and of course, COVID-19 is also a respiratory infection that these folks need to watch out for. How does high intensity exercise suppress immunity? Well, there's a couple of theories with this, but one of them is that if you're exercising 90 minutes or 120 minutes or even longer every day, you're of course expending a ton of energy. And at the same time, if you've become infected with something and your body is trying to mount an immune response, that also takes a tremendous amount of energy. So the thinking is that we just don't have enough physiological energy to exercise and fight an infection off. So some people are going to succumb to getting sick. Now, another probably more plausible theory is that we know also with chronic exercise, we end up with chronic elevations in cortisol. And of course, cortisol is one of our most important hormones. It's an anti-inflammatory. It does good things for our body. However, when you are exercising to the point that you've got chronically elevated cortisol levels, this also has an immune suppressive effect. So it actually shuts down the immune system. And that's why we think these people who exercise so much wind up with more infections. Other factors that contribute to high intensity exercisers getting more sick are things like travel. So of course we're not doing this anymore, but people getting in crowded airports, sitting on crowded airplanes, going to pre-race expos with thousands of people around them. And of course, if you've ever run any kind of road race, you know how crowded it can be, plus all the spectators, plus the stress of travel. Maybe that'll disrupt somebody's sleep. And of course, psychological stress of having to perform well. All of these things have a negative effect on the immune system. So this is why we think people who are higher intensity athletes who exercise longer and compete more wind up getting sick more often. Okay, so what steps can you take to make sure that you are using exercise to your advantage to support your immune system, but also at the same time not suppressing your immune function? So if you're one of these people who's not exercising and you're watching this video, now is the best time for you to start getting fit. Remember, 30 to 60 minutes a day is that sweet spot where exercise will support your immune function very nicely. If you're an endurance athlete and you don't want to gear it down, then you need to pay attention to 5 very important things to keep your immune system running. I've got another video on this that's a little bit more detailed, but the first one is reducing psychological stress. Mental emotional stress has the same effect as all of that exercise does, in that it causes chronic elevations in cortisol. And as I told you before, that suppresses immune function. So dealing with stress is the first thing you need to do. Second thing you need to do is make sure that your sleep is good. Fractured sleep or not enough sleep is also immunosuppressive or inhibits immune function. When we don't sleep, guess what happens? Cortisol goes up again. We don't make enough growth hormone. Our immune system doesn't have time to recuperate and rebuild and regenerate while we're sleeping at night like it normally does. So getting your sleep fixed is another important lifestyle factor you need to take into account. Now, the last 3 things are some basic nutrients, nothing sexy here, but also very well established in supporting immune function. Now, vitamin C is super important. We've seen studies where Marathon runners have taken this through a season. They've wound up with half the respiratory infections than their colleagues did who did not take vitamin C. So you need to make sure you've got vitamin C levels at elevated levels in your blood throughout the day as best you can. So that's why personally I'll take 1,000 milligrams in the morning, 1,000 milligrams at night, and then of course during the day I'm eating a diet very rich in vitamin C, which of course includes lots of fruits and veggies. Second most important nutrient you need is vitamin D. So of course we know that you make vitamin D when ultraviolet light shines on your skin. If you have a job where you don't get outside or you live someplace where the sun doesn't shine, that's of course why a vitamin D supplement is so important. About 5,000 units a day is ideal. Now it's summertime here in Colorado, so I'm getting out in the sun. I'm not taking that much, but you need to approximate that based on where you are and how much sun exposure you're getting. If you do take a vitamin D supplement, make sure it goes down with some fat. So that can be an animal protein, it can be an avocado, it can be some coconut oil, anything like that. That fat helps you absorb and assimilate that vitamin D, and you can take it any time of the day. Third most important nutrient is zinc. Of course, you're probably hopefully hearing about this in the news as more studies come out, but zinc has a very unique role in supporting immune function, and one of the things it does is it inhibits viral replication or just simply keeps the virus from reproducing. Zinc is found in a lot of foods. It's a little hard to get deficient in zinc, but if your diet isn't that good, you could become deficient. And of course, these days with the threat of COVID-19, it may be a good idea to supplement with some zinc along with tending that diet. Personally, I'm taking about 25 milligrams of zinc twice a day, and then diet-wise, you can find zinc in things like animal protein, eggs, shellfish is a good one, legumes, nuts, seeds, and of course, dark chocolate has a lot of zinc in it too, so make sure your diet is full of those things, supplement with it twice a day. So I hope this helps you guys understand how immune function can be supported by exercise, and then those few things you can do to also further support your immunity. If you enjoyed the video, please give us a like. Of course, please share this video with your endurance buddies who you think are getting sick all the time or catching colds or seem like they're sick. And of course, please subscribe to our channel. We're always looking for new subscribers.